Hi, Pro Staff team. So I'd like to take a minute to go over with you the edits that the RA Selection Committee for the summer, comprised of Taylor as the chair, Terry, Cynthia, and then myself as the hall director mentor, have come up with for the 15-16 RA selection process. Each of you has a blue folder titled RAS Proposed Edits 15-16. The first page is the table of contents, essentially. There's 12 areas that we looked at. We focused on the email that Deanna sent us in the beginning of May to really focus in on what works well, what doesn't work well, what can we adapt. So I just want to go step by step with you to explain all of the changes. That way you can understand where we were coming from. So the first page is just a list of the committee members. The second page is the timeline, which I'll let you go through, but I just want to point out that our first info session starts October 27th, which will relate to the marketing, meaning we'll have to work with the printing company at the very end of September to make sure that we have everything ready to go and up between that first and second week of October to start advertising for the selection process. One of the changes that was wanted to see made was that all applicants were mandated to schedule some type of a review session with the Career Center. Instead, we thought it would be advantageous to have 2 Career Center workshops, meaning that we've worked with Lisa, and on November 10th and November 13th in the Ocean Room, we'll be having a Career Center resume and application workshop. That being said, we don't exactly know the time yet, but of course there's plenty of time before November to figure out that. And we'll want to make sure that we put that information in the info session, which there's an area to fill in the times there. You'll see some other changes, so the timeline will look a little interesting for some things, i.e. the file review round 1 and file review round 2. But we'll get to that in the back. So on all the folders, there's an application checklist. I just took the liberty of, from my experience with RA alternate selection, editing just a few things. So adding an area where you can check off conduct and housing requirement, because that was written in on some of them. And then of course adding the mandatory Career Center workshop. And then you'll see returners only portfolio. We'll get to that part when we start talking about the application. So I've also taken the liberty to start beginning the information session presentation, and this is in the S drive underneath selection and hiring, and then RA's 2015-2016 process, and then info sessions is the folder that this is in. Feel free to edit. There's places in this info session presentation that there's a line to insert information. It follows the exact same format as the one from last year with the IRA, just of course with a different font, because our theme is Alohomora, Unlock Your Potential. Alohomora is the unlocking spell in Harry Potter, and you'll see when we discuss the competencies later in this proposal, or these proposed edits, how Alohomora really fits in. They're unlocking the potential for leadership, education, etc. Okay. So once we get through the info session, you'll see the application materials. Similar to last year, everything will be done on Google. Taylor has offered to make the Google site, but I think that it would be most advantageous if a professional staff member made that, so that way they have complete access to it at all times. There's a few edits that we made with the application. For the new applicants, we thought that a critical decision-making question was important, specifically ethical decision-making. So you'll see that there's a question, and the question on the new application actually regards something with a football team, and the applicants are asked to write a response as to how they would handle that situation and what they would do. The returning RA application is a little bit different as well. So we've also added a critical thinking question. It is not the same as the new applicants. We've also added a portfolio. This means that we've gotten rid of the idea that they have to submit 2 references. Instead, they'll be required in their portfolio to include 3 letters of recommendation, one of which has to be from a faculty or staff member on campus. We encourage them to get them from their residents as well, or their hall director. You'll see in the application what is included in the portfolio: 3 successful programs and corresponding evaluations, We encourage them to include pictures from the events or any ads or any materials that they used, newsletters, floor emails, or other communication that they've used on their floor, pictures or examples of all bulletin boards and door decks, list or give examples of any special projects completed for the supervisor or the staff, and then, of course, those recommendations, minimum of 3, and at least 1 from a faculty or staff member. The portfolio has to be contained in a 1-inch binder or smaller, and they may receive their portfolio back after offers have been made, but that's completely up to the discretion of Housing and Res Life. So our next section is the interview forms. You'll notice that all of the changes are marked by color. Of course, they're not saved in the color. They are saved in black and white and without the edits that were made in this proposal. The new questions are in red. The blue is the question that was replaced or the section of the question that was replaced, and then anywhere green on the interview form is a question that was removed. And that's for both new and returning applicants. New applicants, we added some questions, we changed some, and then we also changed the scoring system from 1 to 6 to 0 to 4, and you'll be able to see the description of those scores. The returning applicants, the form was completely reformatted so that way it is consistent and matched the new applicant interview form. Again, we made some additions and changes and then also added a scoring system with the returning applicant, and that's the 0 to 4 scoring system as well. That remains pretty consistent throughout. Everything is really on a 0 to 4 scoring system. You'll see that there's an area at the back of each interview form for the rationale for each section, and then a score total, and then a place for the overall recommendation where the either non-returning RA or professional staff member can circle rehirable, rehirable with reservations, or not rehirable, or for a new applicant, hireable, hireable with reservations, or not hireable. We're then going on to group process. So we did make some proposed changes for the new applicants. Most things are the same. The timeline is very similar. So from the 2 to 5